What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video and another week of The Bad Batch. We're here on the now 14th episode titled War-Mantle, and I can't believe we only have 2 more episodes after this. As usual, we'll be jumping straight into spoilers, so if you have not seen this episode, definitely go check it out and come back. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. This episode doesn't have an abundance in terms of spoilers to really talk about, but I will be talking about spoilers and all that like I just mentioned, and just be jumping straight into it. But I don't really think there's too much to say, though I really did enjoy this episode. The episode opens up when we see a clone trooper running away from what seems to be other clone troopers, who's eventually ends up being stunned and ends up being captured. Not too long after that, we're reintroduced to the Bad Batch once again, and again, I just have to say, Dee Bradley Baker as all of these clones throughout the course of the show has just been top notch. He's just such a great voice actor, and if you watch the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, you know that he plays tons of other characters outside of the clones themselves. So for him to literally be leading this show by playing the entirety of the Bad Batch, as well as other clones that may appear, and maybe some of the other random characters that I'm not really familiar with just yet, or at least familiar with him specifically playing, it is really awesome just to know that the dude is just so talented and can do all these various voices. Just really enjoy that element of the show without a doubt. But yeah, so we end up seeing that this clone was captured, and we end up getting a reintroduction in the show to Captain Rex, who sends a message or calls out to the Bad Batch to let them know, hey, there's been this clone that sent out a distress signal. He needs our help. I can't go and get him right now. I need you guys to go and get them. So the Bad Batch decides, sure, we'll go get them. When they get there, they end up finding out that there is an Imperial base there. At first, Hunter's like, yeah, I'm not too sure I really want to do this. But Echo actually pushes him in the direction of doing that, because they actually did the same thing to save Echo at the last part of the Clone Wars. So he's like, hey man, if I hadn't been rescued by you guys, I would have been dead, or I would have still been there. And so, Hunter's like, all right, we're going to go in there and get this guy. Once they get in there, it's really cool to see kind of that transition, like I've mentioned in some of the previous episode reviews, that transition into the Empire, as we see some commandos who are pretty much exactly like Republic commandos, but they have a little bit of a different Imperial vibe to them. We also get to see some regular TK troopers with their armor still kind of making that transition into the traditional TK stormtrooper outfits, or the armor from the classic Star Wars trilogy. But yeah, it's really cool to see the slow stepping stones, because if you've seen Star Wars Rebels, you know that the recruits who are young, that are still learning to become stormtroopers, have this very specific helmet that almost has like a Darth Vader kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but they have a different kind of helmet, and so it's cool to see actually adult troopers here that are still recruits that kind of have a blend of the traditional stormtrooper helmet as well as that recruit helmet that we were introduced to in Star Wars Rebels. So really enjoy that element, getting to see those slow stepping stones as the Republic turns into the Empire, definitely becoming more Imperial as each episode goes on. But yeah, we start to see some stuff going on with the Kaminoans. We see that the Empire is slowly starting to unravel their plan to kind of just screw over the Kaminoans and get rid of the clone troopers altogether, as they build up this stormtrooper army for the Empire. And on the other side, we have the Bad Batch going in to save this clone trooper into this Imperial base, like I mentioned. And when they end up getting there, we end up finding out that the name of this clone trooper is Gregor. And anybody who's a fan of Star Wars Rebels will remember that name, because Gregor was one of the clone troopers who was still hanging around with Captain Rex at a much older age in Star Wars Rebels. So yeah, it's really cool to see Gregor in this show, a younger version of him, and kind of get that connective tissue that would lead in to Star Wars Rebels. I really enjoyed how they've handled that in this show. I think for the longest time, I used to always call Star Wars Rebels the sequel series to the Clone Wars, and now the Bad Batch is definitely more in line with being an actual sequel series to the Clone Wars, with Star Wars Rebels actually being more of like the end of a trilogy in a lot of ways, while also setting up more stories, which is just classic Star Wars. So yeah, it's really cool to now have this animated series in between these 2 already completed animated series of Star Wars that can connect to the 2 of them, giving us some prequel elements to Star Wars Rebels, as well as some sequel elements to the Clone Wars. Overall, really enjoying the way that they're handling it. It's not overblown, it's not overdone. I think if you're somebody who has not seen Star Wars Rebels, you can still watch this show and still enjoy it for what it is, but you'll be missing out on a lot of the obvious references and connective tissue, and obviously these characters are involved in this season, like Caleb Doom and Harrison Dula and now Gregor, to very much lean into the, hey, look, this is where that connective tissue comes into place for Star Wars Rebels. So yeah, really enjoying this show overall, really enjoying the animation, loving the overall just adventure that it's been. But overall, this episode for the most part was an action episode. It was a let's get out of here kind of episode. There's some stealth, there's some big over the top action, there's some great hand-to-hand combat, combat, a lot of gunplay, a lot of ship battles. So overall, this was just a big, fun spectacle episode that had those connective pieces into Star Wars Rebels, like I mentioned. Slowly being able to see the Empire take over Kamino and kind of ruin the entire, clone operation is really cool. I'm really enjoying that element of the show. And yeah, without a doubt, this was another fun episode. Not one of my favorites in the whole series thus far, but definitely a cool episode. And definitely, without a doubt, outside of Gregor and those connective tissues, like I mentioned, one of the most notable elements of the episode is that at the very end, they do escape. However, Hunter gets left behind and ends up being captured by the Empire. And in his cell, he is visited at the very end of the episode by Crosshair. So yeah, very much loving this show. Love the animation. Love the voice work. Just overall, this is the top-notch Star Wars show. It's not my favorite thus far. I think the Clone Wars and Rebels still definitely have a lead over the Bad Batch, but it's definitely far better than Star Wars Resistance, and without a doubt, this is just a good, fun time. So yeah, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts right here. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? How do you guys feel about where this is going? Are you guys enjoying that transition from the Republic to the Galactic Empire? I know I definitely am, and I'm loving seeing all this connective tissue and the story that's building from the Clone Wars, the connective tissue from the Clone Wars into Star Wars Rebels, seeing all those little Easter eggs and hints and nods and characters that are coming back to see a younger version from Rebels or to see an older version from Clone Wars. I just think that they're handling it all really, really well, and I'm having a lot of fun with what Dave Filoni and everybody at Lucasfilm, who is part of this show, is definitely doing. So please leave any or all of your thoughts down below in the comment section. Please hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.